Welcome to the Taf Hub. This is a brand new show brought to you by Taf Africa Global to educate you on real estate business and all the information you need to know about real estate.
After 45 years of construction and real estate development in 8 African countries, it is time to share my experience, and it can only be done in the Taf Hub. We will be inviting experts who will give you facts and the right regulations on real estate development.
Join us every week on our social media platforms for an exciting show. You can also watch us on JRTS TV every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Hello viewers, welcome back on your favorite show, the Taf Hub. My name is Maria Vakuli, and we are really excited to be back on your favorite platform on another episode. And today, I'm really happy that my boss and the host of this very show, Mr. Njai, is on the platform after being away for a while. Welcome back, Mr. Njai. We missed you. How are you?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mariama. And thank you to our keen listeners and our followers on the Taf Hub. Yes, I took a break. I went to charge my batteries. So my batteries are fully charged for a year. But let's not take the show.
No.
We have a guest here today. Nobody other than our Dr. Ismail Abaji.
Thank you.
Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you for
having me. And what we do on this show, really, we don't introduce you. We allow you to introduce yourself. And please, don't shy to introduce who you are. Tell our viewers who you are. So you're welcome, Doctor.
No, thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Obviously a big fan of Taf Hub and the ideas that come out of here. Well, as you mentioned, Ismail Abaji is my name. I claim my Banjul roots because I was born in Banjul. My family has deep roots in Banjul. My mom from Afdai. My dad was raised in Banjul as well to Independence Drive, and Independence Drive as its older ages as well too. So I'm very proud of my Afdai roots as well too. And my family, my mom's family, the Menga family, Aja Fatim Menga is my grandmother as well. So born in Banjul, we left when I was young because my dad was a diplomat at the time. So most of my childhood, actually, I spent it in Belgium, in the USA, and I moved back to Gambia in the early 90s. So maybe about 2 years before we had the coup is when I started learning about Gambia, started speaking the local languages. So I started my Gambian experience then. Did my schooling here, so primary school, went through the Ndaus system. Left Ndaus and then transitioned to a public school, Gambia High, which was more of a tradition in our family. At grade 9, you transitioned to a public school because it was a different experience as well too. So I did Gambia High and then left the Gambia when I was 17 after high school and moved back to the US and started my studies there, did a first degree in chemistry, and then did my doctor of pharmacy at Purdue. And I've been in the US up until my journey back home, maybe 2.5 years ago.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, you have lived and practiced in the United States for the most of your life. Why did you decide to return home?
Well, it's home. I think it's interesting because I always knew when we moved back to Gambia that I was going to leave in high school, which I think is very typical for a family where you almost have to acknowledge your privilege in a certain extent that certain families groom kids to leave Gambia. But when we're leaving, there's never a conversation of what happens when you're coming back. Because the general notion is like, once you leave and go be successful outside. That's honestly how we raise a lot of, at least my generation of kids, like you leave. But so even my parents never had a conversation about, okay, when are you gonna come back and what are you gonna do? So I think coming back was never part of the plan. I think once I started practicing pharmacy and understood healthcare and how there was this huge disparity in terms of the gap in access. And also, from a personal side, I never got to know my grandparents. And now I understood how healthcare was actually robbing me from getting to know a lot of my elders because going back to my grandmother, Aja Fatim Menga of Avdai, died at 56. So she died 2 years after we moved back to Gambia, so we never got to know her. And she's a giant in our family. When it comes to women, she was an entrepreneur, all these elements. So I think once I started coming back as an adult, I realized that, okay, God has blessed me with a good education and a skill set that is rare. So all the ideas that the US system could reward me for, Africa is a blank canvas. It's always been, from a real estate standpoint, from a business standpoint. And I think that's when Gambia and the continent started calling me back. And then I just started working my way in terms of just how do I come back and, provide a little bit of value as well. But coming back was never part of the plan. And I think our education system doesn't groom patriots who leave and come back. They groom us to leave and never look back as well.
Great. But doctor, I'm trained in the US, a doctor in pharmacy. You had all the opportunities in the US as a young man, but you've decided to come home. Take us through why you decided to come home and what have you set up in the Gambia?
Yes. No, I think I was fortunate to have a good education. So I went to a top 10 school in the world when it comes to pharmacy. Got it, and I was very successful very early in my career in the U.S. working for Walgreens, which is a giant in terms of community healthcare. And I think I started realizing a shift in what technology was doing in healthcare, where a lot of people don't understand. I spent a lot of time working in rural communities in America. And the challenges that exist in rural communities in America are similar to Africa. Lack of access to care, cost is too high, low literacy rates. So I think we actually have a wrong perception of what America is. But I realized, okay, if I'm able to provide value here for people that don't look like me, the magnitude of what could happen when I just take these ideas, going back to even Dubai, bringing best ideas in a space that now Africa in the next 50 years is going to be the mecca for every single industry. So I also saw an opportunity. And I knew Gambia was going to be a challenge that I had to be mentally, physically, financially, spiritually ready to leave everything and come back and just set up and just start, especially when it comes to healthcare, because I knew the mission was never to solve the problems of healthcare, but use a model of care that is very tech savvy, it's very relationship based, and meets people where they are, and just start delivering healthcare in a more accessible way. And that was the mission. And I think the biggest misconception, even when we opened Innovarex, was people thought I was setting up a pharmacy because I'm a pharmacist by profession. When the business model was actually, no, we're trying to democratize health and wellness, where we allow individuals to define what wellness means to them, and we deliver it to help them live longer lives. Which is why even at Innovarex Global, if you walk in, there's a plaque of my grandmother. So every single day is a reminder that, okay, this exists now where grandmothers are not dying at 56 from diabetes and hypertension. They could live to be 80 years old and get to meet their great-grandkids. So that was the mission as well. And obviously the support system and standing on the shoulders of giants, I don't discredit that. Because every individual who's a professional in the diaspora, you see inspiration in the Gambia. Right? And Uncle Taf is one of them. If anything, my first exposure in the Gambia, my introduction to Gambia was at TAFCON 5. Oh, yeah. Right? That was my introduction to the Gambia as a professional because I had left. But you see all the inspiration in the ground. So a lot of people want to do it, but you have to have a support system locally in terms of a strong family network, people that believe in the mission, people that will push you, that makes it easier for you to plant your feet. Because Gambia is one of the, 2016, when I was coming back, Gambia was listed as one of the worst places to do business. Worst places to do business. So I knew it was not be friendly. So I just jumped. And I think part of it too is once you have a strong why and you have a vision, the hardest part is just jumping. Because once you jump, the rest you start figuring it out as well too. So a lot of those things went into the decision.
So then you set up, what did you set up then?
So I set up Innovarex Global, which is an integrated health solutions company, right? It's a health solutions company that makes it a one-stop shop for all your needs. So leveraging technologies like telemedicine, where now we knew Gambia doesn't have a lot of doctors, but the world doesn't lack doctors. So now you could be in Birkama and you could be having a clinical consultation with a doctor who's in Dakar, who's in Ghana, he's in the USA. So using that technology. Medication as well too, in terms of understanding that diseases like diabetes and hypertension, it's not a transactional disease. You live with it. So how do you make sure you have a company now that could take care of a patient by making sure they get quality access to medications, providing them with the testing that they need all year round. So that's what Innovarex Global Health is. It was a healthcare solutions company that we built to be as agile as possible for the Gambia.
Now, since the existence of Innovarex Global Health, what has been the reaction of people? Because most of the time, people complain about the healthcare system or the services that are being provided. Since you came into existence, how has the reaction of people been?
I think it's been positive. I think that people have sustained the business, not the ecosystem. And I think that's always an honest assessment where most startups in countries that are fast growing, the ecosystem will even sustain the idea until the people arrive where you get customers. But I think from day one when the pandemic hit, so we actually launched a company that was built to do at-home delivery. It was built to do at-home testing. It was built to have like an e-commerce platform. And then the pandemic happened, and every healthcare company in the world had to have an element of Innovarex Global. So from day one, people that normally even traveled to seek better healthcare couldn't travel. People that used to get medications from the USA now had Innovarex where we were sourcing from the USA. So I think that the reaction has been overwhelming, but a unique feature of our business model, half of our revenue comes from outside of Gambia.
Really?
People in the diaspora. Because when we were doing market research, which is very important in terms of how you set up a company, who is your customer? We realized that majority of the people in the diaspora lose sleep at night because they have a loved one who's not healthy. And no matter how much money they have, even if they send the money through remittance, they don't know what health outcomes that $500 is going to give them. So we started speaking to them. We did a lot of research surveys asking them, okay, how much are you spending on healthcare? Are you satisfied with what the care you're getting? So we built a business model that now they could spend money on healthcare directly to a company that provides the services versus sending money to a Mariama and say, you know what, go and find medication for him. So that also changed the idea of what a market means. So if you tell me the market is local, no. Gambia has $700 million, remittances in Africa that's coming in. So we tapped into that. So that's been our strongest force with Gambians in the diaspora, who now their loved ones could be anywhere in the Gambia, and the company could take care of them all year round with all their needs without ever owning a hospital bed.
But I think it's good to really re-echo that, since this program is being watched by people in the diaspora also, that Innovarex Global offers this service. So if you have a loved one who is who's suffering from something or is not feeling well and needs medical care, you can go through Innovarex Global. Now, but without a doubt, Innovarex gives some of the greatest first-hand treatment and care, particularly during COVID. But how do you do it? How did you do this as a young leader? Let's talk about leadership now. As a young leader, how did you do this?
First thing was building a culture. I think before you do business development and be successful at it, you have to understand human development. Gambia, historically, they'll tell you it's hard to find talent in the Gambia, which is true. The work ethic is not great, which compared to the region is true. The level of motivation, young people are not patient with apprenticeship, learning a craft and having the discipline to be good at it. So there's all those elements. So our services have only been able to have the traction because we wanted to build a culture of excellence that's intentional. So I think so much of what I've spent my time doing in the company from a leadership standpoint is human development, not clinical expertise, because I've earned my 10,000 hours. I know what that looks like. But how do you cultivate a team of 65 individuals, which is how many employees we have in the Gambia, and make them believe that healthcare especially is more about restoring dignity back into somebody to make them feel like they deserve a better quality of life than how much medicine knowledge you know. Because anybody could open a book and know the language. So that's a core element of our business where anybody who's interacted with them, we care more about how did you feel, right, versus the outcome. So the human development part, and it takes a very honest brand of leadership, which is un-Gambian, because you have to push young people to understand that, okay, quality and consistency matters. We want to be global standard, not Gambia standard. So all the clinical operations is built around that core understanding that it's high time that Gambians have a health experience that makes them feel good and they could be proud of. And then you wrap around the clinical expertise, the processes involved, technology. Our company can't exist without technology. Everything we do, from our electronic health record system, if you got a test during COVID in 2020, somebody's blood pressure that we took in 2020, they could have access to it today. So the integration of technology was something that the company was 20 years ahead of where Gambia is in terms of that. So COVID came, so even if you had COVID, think about it, somebody positive had to stay home and isolate. We had people during COVID where we sent them all the clinical items that they needed, and we were doing telemedicine with them every single day, checking in. How's your temperature today? Check your temperature, we log it into the system. Okay, your temperature is high, that medication, take 2 of them right now and we'll reach back out to you. So it just revolutionized the way healthcare was being provided, and it's been that way since. But the human development, and Uncle Taf will know this because you know the human development, how that's the core of any company. It's the hardest part of doing business in Gambia is the human development. And you have to be very recalcitrant and keep pushing as well.
Well, I think I'm one of your patients, I should say. I visit the clinic a lot, and you did mention something that is very important, and that is data record of your patients. Now, that is new to us Gambians because you go to the hospital, you have to repeat yourself most of the time over and over on tests you've done a couple of years ago, and they don't have access to it anymore, you know, leading to treatments that are not probably going to help your condition at that moment, or they will not even have a clue of your medical history. Now, why is that relevant when it comes to healthcare, having data?
No, because one is the future of healthcare. It's healthcare without data is practicing healthcare blindly. Because every single time you have to start from scratch. So even from a patient standpoint and a provider standpoint, you're always operating from a place of blindness, which is guess game. That's why a lot of people are not satisfied. But also it takes agency away from the customer or the patient. Because data, not across only in healthcare, is if I am a patient and I come in, my blood pressure or my understanding of my condition, I have a right to that information every single time. So health data, what it does now, it gives power back to you, where now you need to understand what is going on with you, but not only, you don't have to ask permission to get access to that information. So no matter where you go, there's a starting point. So now if you've been a customer or a patient with us for a year, if you transition or you go to another country, you don't have to start again and spend all the resources for them to find out things that clinically you have that information already. So it's made the process so much more efficient. And it's only Gambia that is new. So a lot of things that people consider innovation in our company, it's the norm. Gambia is one of the few ecosystems where status quo in a lot of countries is mind-blowing innovation in the Gambia because we're a little bit behind. And health data is something I think we need to commit to as a country because it's just the foundation of wellness. And that's why healthcare is really not expensive. If you have a track record of things, it makes it easy for you to have a healthier life. And the privacy is important too. It's more secure than paper records. It's always more secure. If we have a patient that comes in, the moment the encounter is closed and you get a message saying, this is your results for the day, nobody has access to it. So there's no way of a paper sitting down and then the next person or the watchman or the custodian saying, Mariama Koli was here and this is what's happening. She goes, tells this about an individual. So health data actually secures patient confidentiality, where you build a better level of trust with patients, which is the same everywhere in the world.
I tend to totally agree with you. And it's not only in healthcare, and this is something that we need to embrace as Gambians and as technology. One of the lessons I learned from Dubai that I just picked up is QR codes. That's the world today. You go to a restaurant now, they don't give you a menu, a hard copy menu. All they give you is just a small paper or a QR code, and with your phone, you then scan and go on. And I think it's happening everywhere.
It is.
So I think as Gambians, again, these are lessons we need to learn, that we should not be left behind with technology. Technology rules the world today. So again, our authorities, private sector players, we need to jump onto technology if we were to, catch up with global standards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, what has been your proudest accomplishment as a healthcare provider?
So we went up country last week. So we have patients that we take care of all over Gambia. And that was the first moment in the past 2.5 years that I could say I had a proud moment. Because in that instance, we had an 80-year-old gentleman who lived near Makati. So we had the technology, the team went with me. We used point-of-care testing devices, where portable devices now that you could check somebody's cholesterol level on the spot, their hemoglobin level, to see if they're anemic. And because we use a cloud-based system, all his records were available for clinicians that were in Combo. So as the nurse was checking his blood pressure, our doctor sitting in Carnifing could see what the blood pressure was to make a clinical intervention. And before they even left Makati, our pharmacy was already processing the medications to deliver it to the gentleman. So now that 80-year-old who's in Makati received medication, the same pill as somebody in the US, the same testing equipment as somebody in the US, and now his records is accessible by any doctor in the world using our technology. That was the first moment I realized that, okay, this is something that I could be proud of. Because the alternative for that gentleman in Makati was going to be finding transportation to come to the Combos, because up country there's not a lot of good services. You come to a local facility, nothing wrong against our local facilities, having to make an appointment, spend half a day at a facility. You go to the facility, they give you a prescription. You go trying to find a prescription, go to a pharmacy where Africa, almost 40% to 50% of our products in our market would not pass quality control in a serious nation. Meaning almost 1 in 2 of medications that we buy locally cannot be sold in America, in Europe. And we have to ask that question, why? So because now the company exists and we're able to create that experience for that person, that to me was a proud moment. And I think even the team members are now starting to realize that when we say access equalizes, or leveling the playing field, or restoring dignity back into our people, that's what we mean. And for us now, even our Wellness on Wheels, it means it's a beacon of hope for the families now. So if their loved ones sign them up for the care plan, the moment they see our delivery drivers, the moment they see our vehicle, it represents wellness. That to them is foreign, but the longer it stays, it becomes local, because it doesn't have to be a foreign concept. So I think that moment it encapsulated like a proud moment that makes a lot of the challenges over the 2.5 years worthwhile, where somebody's like, I did not understand what just happened. But I was like, no, you deserve it, because just because you're 80 years old and live in Makati doesn't mean that an 80-year-old in Atlanta or in New York should have access to better care than you do. Not in 2022. That shouldn't be the case. Yeah.
And it's impressive that you invest and go all the way to Makati or go up country at your own expenses to make sure you provide quality health for people living there. When you say wellness on wheels, how are you able to mobilize the people who live within that region to know about what you're doing? Or do you have clinic days that are already known by these areas or regions?
Yes, so when I was setting up the company, we knew we had to choose a corporate social responsibility, right? Which most companies, it lacks in that aspect, where it's impactful. And I realized when I was visiting the Gambia, for a Gambian to check their blood pressure, they had to pay. For a Gambian to check their blood sugar, to screen if they had diabetes, they had to pay. So we decided as a company now, we want to make sure no Gambian will ever have to pay to get screened for diabetes and hypertension. So since 2019, you never pay at our facility to get screened for diabetes and hypertension, because we realized clinically more Gambians were dying from those diseases than malaria, than HIV, a lot of things that have high stigma. So we built a What's Your Number program and attached it to Wellness on Wheels, and now started going into communities and mobilizing, going back to the Yai Compins, the village alcalos, tell them, hey, find a Saturday, bring 200 people. We'll screen everybody for diabetes and hypertension. So now as a community, you know how healthy your community is. And we're finding Gambians who are 40 years old, 50 years old, have never checked their blood pressure in their life, has never checked their blood sugar in their life. So those are the people who wake up 50 years old, they're dead. 45 years old, they're dead. So the community aspect is huge in what we do. So we not only provide it in here, but it's more impactful places where it's 2 hours away from a hospital. So we've been doing that constantly. And it's allowed us to build relationships with communities, but it's allowed us also to identify people that have been diabetic for 5, 10 years and don't know. Hypertension is rampant. And the program has yielded a lot of success. And going back to data, because we have an electronic health record system, we could tell you, okay, Bakote right now, 40% of the people are prehypertensive, right? So even in communities, this region right here, half of the population are already diabetic, but there's no diabetic clinic in the area. So now even from a policy standpoint, you could deploy resources in an area that's most needed. And the companies being able to do that in that way. So.
Yeah, I think taking them further now, based on the conversation now, wellness on wheels. Let's look at technology and what is happening in other parts of Africa. Probably very soon you will have to change that phrase, because I'm sure you can do deliveries by drones now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's no longer wheels.
It's not wheels. No.
Yeah, it's no longer wheels.
Absolutely.
So you know, I mean, I will not be surprised that very soon probably you'll have a center by region. And for example, if you had a center in Mansakonko, and then everything around the Mansakonko region, you can just drop medication.
Absolutely.
You know, with drones.
With drones.
So very soon.
Especially with the way traffic is now.
No, actually, that's where healthcare is going.
Yeah.
It's modular. The healthcare is no longer an infrastructure business. It's actually, if your business model revolves around, you were asking about expansion, are we opening up other stores? I was like, we don't have to. It's faster for me to buy another motorcycle or a drone and deliver to 50 homes all at once, than build a brick and mortar, pay rent, pay utilities, when I don't need a fulfillment center, especially Gambia is small. So it's like leveraging technology, going into health kiosks, where now people you could fill it, people have access to their care. So I think from a health technology standpoint and logistics, it's impressive what you could do, and that's where the company is moving towards as well too.
That has brought us to the end of the first episode. I mean, the first phase of this discussion with Dr. Ismail Baji of Innovarex Global Health. We'll be right back for the next episode here on the Taf Hub. My name is Mariama Kuli, and of course I'm here with the host.
I am here. She keeps on calling me the host. I now want to take up as the co-host because she's pushing me out. That's what ladies do. So, and I am Mustafa Njai Taf. So follow us on our social media handles. We are on YouTube on Mustafa Njai Taf.
Taf Africa Global presents the first eco-smart city in the Gambia, the Taf City. Located between Gunjur and Sifo, it is 30 minutes away from the Banjul International Airport. At Taf City, you will be able to live, work, play, and shop in a healthy multi-purpose community. This vibrant urban environment will meet your everyday needs with commercial, business, recreational, and other complementary services to increase the value of your home. With up to 5,000 units of affordable homes on a 500-hectare land, Taf City will be twice the size of Banjul. Prime location, stunning properties, and amazing discount of 20% for the first 50 buyers. Make an appointment today to secure your property. For more information, please call +220-776233 or +220-376-2333, or you can send an email to info@tafafricaglobal.com. Better still, visit our office at Madiba Mall, Brewfoot Gardens Estate. Taf City, a green and smart city accessible to all.